Hello, dear listeners, and welcome to a video about petty revenge, where someone has to ruin the party for everyone. Our first post is by Country Fence. Entitled lady tries to force me to leave a public lake. I force her to leave instead. This was a few years ago. I used to work as a detective for a local police department, retired now, and this occurred when I was still employed there. In my life, I've always made every attempt to stay on the right side of the law, as I considered hypocrisy one of the worst traits for an officer of the law to have. I owned a nice ski boat, and in my spare time, I enjoyed taking my family to the local police lake to use the boat and tube, water ski, swim, etc. My kids were ages 12 and 13 at the time, and they really got a kick out of this. They wanted to go nearly every day off I had all summer long. One day, we were at the lake, and after a few hours, my daughter mentioned she needed to use the bathroom. The lake also had a public swimming beach that had public restrooms, and we would often take bathroom breaks there. We would pull up to the shore well away from the marked swimming area and disembark to use the facilities. One day, as we pulled up, I noticed a lady in a lounge chair, sunbathing on shore near where we pull the boat up. I stayed about 50 feet from her, still about 250 feet away from the swimming area, as I slowly maneuvered the boat towards the shore at idle. As I got close, she stood up and glared at me, while my kids whispered to me that they knew her as a mean lunch lady from their previous elementary school. As I brought the boat upshore, this woman started yelling very loudly that I was breaking the law. I smiled, and as friendly as I could, I said, "Really? What law?" She continued yelling, saying that I was driving a motorboat in a swimming area. I pointed at the marked swimming area about 250 feet away and asked, "You mean that swimming area?" To which she replied, "Yes." I told her I never entered or even got close to the swimming area, and that my boat was right now as close as I got. She said the laws prohibited boats from pulling up to any shore. Lol. How do you get in or out of a boat? Swim? And now she was calling her son the deputy who was going to get me in trouble. At this point, I was starting to enjoy this a little, because I thought for sure her son, the deputy, would tell his mom that she couldn't stop me from pulling my boat up to the shore. I stood nearby as she called someone, assuming her son, on her cell. She then reached the person on the phone my boat hull number. It's like a license plate for boats. She then says, with a smirk on her face, "My son is going to order you for the lake right now." And what happens next shocked me. This woman calls me by my full name, then hands me the phone. Now, I should say this. What has just happened is a very clear violation of the law. In my state, it's known as a lien violation, and police officers slash deputies are very often charged with this crime. I read about it several times this year. If an officer uses his police computer to divulge personal information, say a deputy tells his mom the name of the registered owner of a boat that she's having a disagreement with, for example, it is a crime. No ifs, ands, or buts. Every cop knows this. So I take the phone, immediately say, "Who is this?" I hear, "This is Deputy so and so of the Blank County Sheriff Office," and I immediately interrupt and say, "Deputy, do you know what a lien violation is?" Several seconds of silence. I say, "Deputy so and so," using his real name, of course, "are you still there?" He says, "Yes." So I again say, "Deputy so and so, let me ask you again, do you know what a lien violation is?" He stammers out a reply about bolt hole numbers and public records or something. I said, "Nope, that's not what a lien violation is. Since you don't know, do I need to remind your supervisor what a lien violation is?" Again, silence. I then said, "Tell you what, I'm going to hand this phone back to your mother. Then you're going to tell your mother to leave this beach right now. Then we can all forget this ever happened. Understood?" Long silence. "Understood?" He does a long exhale and says, "Yeah, okay." I hand the phone back to his mother. She whispers into the phone for a few seconds, then angrily snaps her phone shut. Without making eye contact, she packs up her stuff and is gone. I thought about reporting him anyway, but technically I was the victim, yet I wasn't feeling victimized and all that, so I let it go. Only one other time did I see the lady at the beach again, and as she saw me, she again immediately packed up her stuff and again left. Edit. When off duty, I am a citizen, like it or not, and quite frankly, thank God for that. I've never cared one way or another for the thin blue line stuff, and while on duty, I witnessed, then later reported an officer and another time a dispatcher breaking the law. For the dispatcher, a misdemeanor lien violation, actually, which I promptly reported both times to my superior. Both were fired, by the way. The officer is still doing federal time as I typed this. As a detective, I prosecute an officer one time for a felony that started with zero evidence against him. Actually got the guy to confess. I was shocked, only because he should know his right to self-incrimination. He was charged and pled to a felony. I'm proud of that, if you should wonder. I'm sure I've probably had cases involving other officers, even if I'm not remembering it now. But all citizens have rights, even cop citizens. When off duty, I have the right to not report something that makes me a victim, if I so choose. But, now you're a hypocrite. No, we can all choose or not. We all get rights, and I will happily prosecute anyone, police or otherwise, when I'm truly victimized. I get to make the call as to when I'm victimized, but demanding that I become a victim when I don't want to be? Now who's victimized? Our next post is from OK Opening. My homeless dad used me in his money scheme, so I took it all. Okay, so the homeless guy is technically my dad. My dad was only in my life actively from ages 0 to 7, and in that time gave me a ton of trauma. He was a hardcore alcoholic manipulator and a lot of other things I can't say. My mom, being the badass she is, left him, and for a short bit, we did weekends at his place. It was a never ending cycle of him drinking, being a piece of garbage, then buying us over with animals and gifts. After several DUIs, unpaid child support, and a few child endangerment cases, he up and left to avoid going to jail. Like, disappeared, left the animals locked in the house that he abandoned, and shut off his phone. Every few months or so, he would randomly show up at my school drunk and crying with gifts in his hands or leave notes on our door. My school literally had to implement a safety plan because my mom was scared he would take me. That stopped him, and I didn't hear from him for about 13 years. When I was 20, he messaged me on Facebook saying he would love to get to know me and asking if there's anything I need financially. My initial response, sick to my stomach and crying, quickly turned to anger. I was broke and could really use the money, and I mean, he owed me, right? I told him I would meet and needed money for rent. When I saw him, my stomach turned. He looked like a crazy guy you see on the side of the road begging for money. He really didn't make much sense and just talked a lot of crap about my mom, saying she was a liar and turned us against him in mumbling nonsense. Apparently, his brother, my uncle that I have never had a relationship with, would no longer give him money but would wire transfer him money for me. He told his brother I needed 1,500 and told me he would take 500 and give me 10,000. His crappy burner phone ran out of minutes, so one of the calls to his brother was made from my phone. Of course, he didn't have an ID or anything, so I would need to pick it up for him. When someone wires you money, they get a code, then give you the code, and voila, you get the money. My dad wouldn't give me the code until we were physically at the place of pickup, which we planned to do the following morning. The next morning, I decided to text my uncle since I now had his number and asked him directly for the code. I got the code, picked up the money, and blocked my garbage dad. He made sure to leave me some deranged voicemails about how big of a piece of crap I am. He pretty much used me to get money from his brother. If he wanted to be in my life, he would have taken the proper steps to do so and change, but he never did. Not denying what I did wasn't crappy, but also F my dad. Edit. My uncle does well financially and obviously was fine with sending me money, which at the time I definitely needed. I saw a few comments saying I helped scam my uncle, which I just don't get. He thought he was sending money to go to me and help me out. The money went to me and helped me out. And of course, I thanked him. Edit. Side note, since people are asking, the animals were rescued as soon as we realized he was gone. Poor babies suffered a lot from him and were also alone for days, but we're alive. Edit. Side note, since people were asking, the animals were rescued as soon as we realized he was gone. Poor baby suffered a lot from him and were also alone for days, but were alive. Last edit, hopefully, it's a wire transfer, not like Venmo or Zelle, it's Western Union. Unless they've changed how you do it, now this is how it's done. Our next post is by Nozek. Neighbors didn't give a crap about my sick dad, so I didn't give a crap about their renovation. Hi guys, I'm a silent lurker in this sub and thought to share a small story of mine. My parents and I live right next to each other in what in Germany we call a Reihenhause. One of our neighbors is doing a big renovation on his house and has workers and trailers all over the street the whole day. That's not really a problem. Me and my dad also told them it's no problem for them to use our driveways for the trailers/wagons at daytimes when we are gone, just so they can keep the street clear. Now my dad, 72, got diagnosed with renal colic and needed surgery. Everything went good, but he's not mobile at the moment and needs to use his car a lot. Normally he goes by bike or just walks. So I went over to our neighbor and told him that my dad needs his spot regularly for the foreseeable future, so he can't put his trailer there anymore. Seemed like everything was good and he understood. It took him 3 days until he put his empty trailer back on my dad's driveway when he was out of the house, and 2 days later he didn't even remove it for the night. Maybe I should have tried to speak to our neighbor again, but I didn't. My friends and family say I have a short fuse and get mad really fast at unimportant stuff. That might be true, but I just can't stand crappy/ignorant people when it's regarding simple stuff like please stop blocking my sick dad's driveway. So by the second time I came home from work and saw the empty trailer again blocking my dad's driveway, I waited for the night to see if he would move it. He didn't. So, at 1 a.m., I got up, walked over to my dad's driveway, removed the brake from the trailer, and just pulled it out of the driveway and just started walking down the street out into the fields with it. We live right at the border of the city and the surrounding wheat fields. I pulled that trailer around a mile away into the fields. Easy to spot for everyone who's walking/driving by. That's 3 weeks ago now, and since then, my dad's driveway never had a trailer on it again. And the trailer is not big, maybe the size of 2 or 3 wheelbarrows. Down in the comments, Second Phase says, my neighbor did this while my wife was 9 months pregnant. We had our bags packed and ready to go at any moment. I wake up and see his truck and trailer parked in front of my driveway. My cars are both parked in the driveway. He has obviously parked me in. The way my house was, you can't drive over the grass and onto the street. We were literally stuck. However, we had a corner lot which meant plenty of street frontage. He could have easily parked along my side yard by walking an extra 30 feet. I knocked on his door and I got no answer. 45 minutes later, I see him open his garage and go talk to him. He says, oh, sorry, I heard you knock, but we were having breakfast. Jerk. If my wife couldn't go to the hospital because of this, you'd be eating breakfast through a straw. Captain Constantine says, reminds me of a time I was throwing a party in college, theater kids, and the house next door to us was also throwing a party. Jocks? I think baseball? I don't remember. Dudes next door decide they don't want to wait for the bathroom and come outside and piss in our front yard. Like, while people are out there on our porch, steps, etc. So I very casually said, hey guys, I know it's a party, but please don't pee in my front yard. It's not your yard, dude. I mean, I guess technically I rent, so you're right. Please don't pee in the front yard. It's not your yard, dude. And now he's managed to zip up and is walking up my steps. Listen, buddy, you're both having parties. I assume we both have underage drinkers. I don't want a problem. I'm just asking you not to pee in our yard, that's all. This doesn't have to be a thing. By now, he's on my porch and tears down some strung up Christmas rope lights to look tough. What are you going to do about it? I just held up my phone where I had dialed 911 and hit send. His eyes go drunk wide and he ran back to the house next door. Within 60 seconds, their party was over. I went back inside and told my party to be quiet and cool. The cops are on their way, but we should be able to handle this. Cops showed up, took my statement, went next door, and found out their party had already dispersed. About 30 minutes later, we get a knock on our door. The two guys who actually live next door are reasonably pissed, but are also not being jerks. They basically say, if there is a problem, you could have come and knocked on our door and we would have fixed it. No need to call the cops. I said, your buddy was on my front porch and he wanted to fight. I didn't have the opportunity to come next door. I described the guy and they were like, oh, I'm sorry. That guy's a frickin' tool. They then brought the remaining keg of beer over to our place and partied with the theater kids. Thank you, dear listeners, for tuning in to another Reddit video. If you would like to, click another video. and if you would be so kind as to like and subscribe. Thank you very much.